You never really prepare for betrayal. It strikes like a bolt of lightning, leaving you paralyzed in its aftermath. For me, it wasn't just betrayal. It was humiliation served cold and cruel. I had trusted her with my heart, and him with my loyalty. But together, they shattered my world in a way I never saw coming. It all unraveled when he approached me, my so-called best friend. With a smug grin plastered on his face, he slid into the seat across from me at the bar, reeking of cheap cologne and overconfidence. He didn't waste time, jumping straight into his sickening confession. "You know," he began, swirling the whiskey in his glass like he was sharing some inside joke, "your wife is absolutely incredible. We've been sleeping together, at least 30 times now. And let me tell you, she's done things with me she'd never even think of doing with you." For a moment, the air felt heavier, like it was suffocating me. Every word he spoke cut deeper than the last. But instead of reacting the way he expected, yelling, crying, or maybe even throwing a punch, I stayed still. My pulse pounded in my ears, but outwardly, I was calm. Too calm. As he leaned closer, his grin widening like he was savoring my imagined pain, I decided to shatter his smug little bubble. I smiled, my voice as cold as steel. "Thanks for letting me know. You can have her." The grin faltered for just a second, but I wasn't done. I leaned forward, locking eyes with him, and delivered the final blow. "By the way, she's pregnant, and guess what? The baby's yours." The color drained from his face. The smugness? Gone. He stammered, trying to form words, but all that came out was a pathetic, What? I leaned back, letting him drown in his own panic. "Yeah, congratulations, Daddy. Looks like you're in for a fun ride." He looked like he'd just been punched in the gut, but this was only the beginning. What happened next would be the real reckoning. He sat there, stunned, his confidence crumbling before my eyes. It was satisfying, almost too satisfying, to watch him squirm. He had come here to humiliate me, to bask in his twisted sense of superiority. But now he was a man cornered, unsure of what to say or do. I didn't know," he stuttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "She didn't tell me anything about a baby." I shrugged, pretending to sip my drink while keeping my eyes locked on him. "Why would she? You're just her dirty little secret, aren't you? Except now, the secret comes with a lifelong commitment." His breathing quickened, his hands trembling as he fumbled with the glass in front of him. "Look, man, I didn't mean for it to go this far. It just happened." "It just happened," I repeated, letting out a cold laugh. "Yeah, I'm sure it just happened. 30 times." My voice grew sharper, each word cutting through the fragile silence. "But hey, don't worry. You're about to experience all the joys of fatherhood. And as a bonus, you get her too. Sounds like a win-win, doesn't it?" He didn't answer. His face was pale now, and I could almost see the gears turning in his head. He wasn't just worried about me anymore. He was thinking about his life, his own family, and the fallout this bombshell would bring. But I wasn't done yet. No, this was just the appetizer. The main course was yet to come. "Here's the deal," I said, my tone icy but deliberate. "You're going to tell her everything, right here, right now. Call her, put her on speaker. Let's see how she reacts when she hears about your little confession." His eyes widened in horror. "No, I can't." "Oh, you will," I interrupted, my voice a low growl. "Because if you don't, I will, and trust me, I won't be as nice about it." The seconds ticked by, each one stretching into eternity as he weighed his options. Finally, with shaky hands, he pulled out his phone. What he didn't know was that I had already planned my next move. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about taking back control and ensuring that neither of them would ever forget the price of betrayal. His hands trembled as he unlocked his phone. For the first time, the smug, self-assured man who had approached me was gone. What remained was a nervous wreck, staring at the screen as though it held his death sentence. Go on, I urged, my voice calm but cold, like a blade pressing against his neck. Dial her. Let's hear how much she loves her best friend. He hesitated, looking at me like he was searching for an escape. But there wasn't one. He knew that. With a resigned sigh, he tapped the screen, and the phone rang. It felt like time slowed as we both listened to the ringing. Then she answered. Hey, babe. Her voice came through the speaker, soft and sweet, as if butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. What's up? He shot me a pleading look, but I simply gestured for him to speak. I told him, he stammered. There was silence on the other end. Then her voice dropped an octave. Told him what? About us, he mumbled, his voice barely audible. He knows everything. The line went dead quiet. I could almost hear her mind racing, scrambling for an excuse, a way out, anything to regain control of the situation. But before she could say a word, I leaned forward and spoke for her. Hi, sweetheart, I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm. Guess who's here with me? Your lover, and soon-to-be baby daddy. He's been very forthcoming about your little escapades. Her sharp intake of breath was almost satisfying enough to make up for the months of deceit. Wait, I can explain, she began, her voice frantic. Save it, I cut her off, my voice sharp enough to make even him flinch. You've already said enough without saying a word. I hope your new soulmate can handle you and the mess you've created. You both deserve each other. Please just, she tried again, but I hung up. The satisfaction of cutting her off mid-sentence was a small, yet meaningful, victory. I turned my attention back to him, who now looked like he wanted to disappear. You know, I said, leaning back in my chair, this is just the beginning. I've been quiet for too long, letting you both think you could walk all over me. But now, it's my turn. What are you going to do? He stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled, the kind of smile that sends a chill down your spine. Oh, don't worry, I said. You'll find out soon enough. But I'll give you a hint. It's going to make your lives a living hell. And with that, I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table to cover my drink. As I walked away, I could feel their panic hanging in the air like a storm cloud. They had no idea what was coming, but they'd soon find out. Walking out of that bar felt like the first real breath of freedom I'd taken in months. But I wasn't just walking away. I was walking toward the revenge I had meticulously planned the moment I uncovered their betrayal. When I got home, I sat down with my laptop. If they thought this confrontation was the end of it, they were in for a rude awakening. My first move was simple but effective: securing my finances. I locked her out of every joint account, canceled her access to credit cards, and ensured she wouldn't see a penny more than what the law demanded. Next, I called my lawyer. I explained everything: the affair, the confession, and even the possibility of her pregnancy being tied to her lover. He listened carefully, then assured me we had a strong case for a divorce that wouldn't leave me in ruins. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel the consequences of their actions in every aspect of their lives. I dug deeper into my best friend's life, or rather, my former best friend. Turns out, his perfect little world wasn't so perfect after all. He was engaged. His fiancée, a sweet woman I'd met a few times at gatherings, deserved to know the truth about the man she was planning to marry. It didn't take long to find her on social media. With evidence in hand, screenshots of texts, photos of them together, and even a recording of his disgusting confession, I composed an email. I made sure every word dripped with the truth and sent it off with a clear conscience. The next day, I saw the fallout unfold. His fiancée left him, publicly. Her scathing post on social media, complete with screenshots, went viral among our mutual friends. Within hours, he became a pariah. But my wife? She wasn't off the hook, not yet. When she came home that evening, her expression shifted from guilt to horror as she found her belongings neatly packed in boxes by the door. I stood there, calm but firm. "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, tears already streaming down her face. "I don't care," I replied, my voice devoid of sympathy. "You made your choices. Now live with them. And don't worry about the baby. If it's his, he can help you raise it. If it's mine, well, you'll hear from my lawyer." She begged, cried, and even tried to accuse me of being cruel. But her words held no weight. The moment she walked out of that door, I felt the weight of her lies lift from my shoulders. As I watched her leave, I thought the storm was over. But life has a cruel way of keeping you on your toes. 2 weeks later, I got a call that changed everything. It was my lawyer. His tone was calm but cautious. "I have some news," he said. "Your wife's pregnancy. It's not what you think." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" He sighed. "She's not pregnant." The words hit me like a truck. For a moment, I couldn't process them. "What? How do you know?" "She saw a doctor last week and confessed everything. She lied about being pregnant to manipulate both you and her lover. She thought it would keep one of you from leaving her." The sheer audacity of her deceit made my blood boil. She had stooped so low, weaving an elaborate lie just to save her crumbling world. But now, the tables had turned. "She's trying to contact you," my lawyer continued. "She claims she wants to make things right." I laughed bitterly. "Make things right? After this circus? Not a chance." But her lies didn't stop there. Days later, her lover, yes, the same man who had boasted about their affair, showed up at my office unannounced. His face was a mixture of anger and desperation. "We need to talk," he said, his voice trembling. "Do we?" I replied coldly, folding my arms. "Haven't you said enough already?" He slammed a folder onto my desk. "You're going to want to see this." Curiosity got the better of me. I opened the folder, my eyes scanning the documents inside. They were medical records, his medical records. And then I saw it. Proof that left me stunned. He was sterile. "She's been lying to both of us," he said, his voice cracking. "I can't have kids. That baby, if it even exists, isn't mine." A cold realization washed over me. If he couldn't be the father, and I knew I hadn't touched her in months, then who? I looked up at him, my mind racing. "So, she's been cheating on both of us?" He nodded, his expression filled with equal parts anger and shame. "Looks like it, and I think I know who." The pieces of the puzzle started to fall into place. A mutual friend, someone we'd both trusted, had been spending an unusual amount of time with her recently. The late-night texts, the unexplained absences. It all made sense now. "Do you have proof?" I asked, my voice steely. He hesitated, but eventually nodded. "Not yet, but I'll get it." For the first time, we found ourselves on the same side, not as friends, but as two men wronged by the same woman. And now, it wasn't just about revenge. It was about uncovering the full truth, no matter how deep this betrayal went. The next few days were a whirlwind. My former best friend and I, unlikely allies now, dug deeper into my wife's web of lies. It didn't take long for the truth to surface. The mutual friend we suspected turned out to be her secret third lover. He was a sleazy coworker of hers, notorious for flirting with anything that moved. It was almost laughable. She had played us all, weaving a web of deceit so tangled that even she couldn't keep track of it. Armed with this new information, I decided it was time to confront her one last time, but this time, it wouldn't just be about anger. It would be about closure. I invited her to meet me at a coffee shop under the pretense of discussing the divorce settlement. When she arrived, she wore a hopeful smile, as though she still believed she could manipulate her way out of this mess. I wasted no time. "I know about him," I said, sliding a picture of her coworker across the table. Her face went pale, the fake confidence draining instantly. I can explain," she stammered, but I cut her off. "Don't bother," I said, my voice calm and resolute. I've heard every lie you could possibly come up with. You've destroyed everything we had, and now you've destroyed any shred of respect I might have had left for you." Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't move me. "I don't want your apologies, and I don't want your excuses. This is over." She broke down, pleading and crying, but her theatrics meant nothing. I stood up, tossing a neatly prepared divorce agreement onto the table. "Sign it. I've already made sure you'll get only what the law requires me to give you. Nothing more." She stared at the papers, her hands trembling. "Please, don't do this," she whispered. "It's already done," I said. "And one more thing. You should know that your lover, the one you thought had your back, he's sterile. That fake pregnancy stunt you pulled, it's not just over the line, it's pathetic." The divorce was finalized quickly, thanks to her inability to contest anything without exposing her lies further. My lawyer made sure everything was airtight, and I walked away with my dignity and my assets intact. As for her lovers, both of them faced their own reckoning. Her coworker, fired after his wife found out about the affair. My former best friend, he became a social pariah, with his fiance's public post ensuring he'd be remembered as a cheater for years to come. But the most surprising twist came weeks later. One evening, I received a message from her coworker's wife. She thanked me for exposing the affair and shared how it gave her the strength to leave a toxic marriage. Her words reminded me that, even in the midst of betrayal, truth has a way of setting things right, not just for me, but for others caught in the crossfire. Now, months later, I've started to rebuild my life. I've surrounded myself with people who value honesty and loyalty, and for the first time in a long time, I feel free. Betrayal might have broken my trust, but it didn't break me. If anything, it made me stronger, more resilient, and ready to embrace the future with open arms. As for her, last I heard, she's still trying to pick up the pieces of her shattered life, alone. And honestly, that's exactly where she belongs. In the end, life has a way of teaching you hard lessons, often through the most painful experiences. But what I've learned from all of this is that betrayal isn't the end. It's a painful beginning to something much better. When the woman I once loved tore apart everything I thought we had, I found strength in the wreckage. With every lie exposed, I found a piece of my self-worth that had been buried beneath years of manipulation. The anger faded, and what replaced it was clarity. I didn't need revenge to feel powerful, I just needed to let go. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the lies, free from the manipulations, and free from a relationship that had never truly been built on trust. I'm moving forward now, surrounded by those who genuinely care, and I've learned to trust again, not blindly, but with caution and wisdom. As for her and the mess she created, I have no more time or energy to waste on her. She made her choices, and now she has to live with them. I'm finally living for myself, not for the idea of what our marriage was supposed to be. Sometimes you have to go through the darkness to find the light, and I'm walking toward it, stronger than I've ever been. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so and press the notification bell. This way, you'll stay updated with more shocking real-life stories.